On the question of a realistic chance to win, in some ways that's parallel to the question, do students have a realistic chance of ever getting out of debt? Or the question, do the 1 in 3 Americans who don't have health care ever have a chance of getting, really adequate health care? And there are many people who are covered but who cannot afford to actually seek care. Or the many people who cannot afford to live in their communities as they gentrify. Do they ever have a realistic chance? Or workers, half of which are barely at the poverty level, given current wages. Do they ever have a chance? And so the question is, do we simply accept a rigged economy, or do we stand up and fight it? And these are the kinds of questions that we're asking in this race, and I think even bigger ones. It's not only what kind of a world we will have, but whether we will have a world or not. Do we have a realistic chance of stopping climate change when, in fact, under the Democrats, with a Democrat in the White House, and even when we had 2 Democratic houses of Congress, we adopted this all-of-the-above climate policy under which the emissions of greenhouse gases have escalated. They're not only increasing, they're increasing at a faster rate. So, or do we have a realistic chance of averting nuclear catastrophe now that Barack Obama wants to spend $1 trillion on a new generation of nuclear weapons? Do we have a chance of avoiding blowback from terrorism when our foreign policy has been catastrophic? The war on terror has only created new sources of terror. Every terrorist group out there that we've been fighting has actually increased its territory and its strength and its viciousness over the past 15 years that we've been conducting the war on terror. So, the question is, do we, the American people, just sort of accept our powerlessness? We're told that we are all marginal, that we don't count, that the system is not about us. But the American people are standing up and rejecting that notion. That was the power behind Bernie Sanders' campaign. And now the majority of Americans reject the Democratic and Republican nominees at record rates of distrust and dislike. And record numbers are calling for another voice and another choice. So this is the question of the hour. Are we going to sort of go quietly into this dark night, in which we are making a beeline for oblivion, whether it's climate, nuclear power, expanding war, the next meltdown of the economy, which is, as ready to fail as it was in 2008. The Dodd-Frank bill has not fixed Wall Street, and that's well understood. So, this is the question that we're asking, to some extent that the Sanders campaign was asking, and the American people have given a resounding no to this question of, do we just sit by and accept the system that tells us we are powerless to change it? And the choice between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is a disastrous choice. Even most of their supporters do not support those candidates. The majority of Hillary's supporters are mostly opposing Donald Trump, and the majority of Trump's supporters are mostly opposing Hillary Clinton. So what's wrong with this picture? Democracy is not, deciding who we are most afraid of or who we most dislike. Democracy needs an affirmative agenda. It needs a moral compass. And our campaign is providing a vehicle for the public interest to stand up and say, this is the moral compass, and we're going to fight for it. And we'll not be intimidated into the lesser evil, because the lesser evil has a track record of disaster. All the reasons people were told to vote for the lesser evil, because you didn't want the expanding wars, you didn't want the massive Wall Street bailouts, you didn't want the meltdown of the climate, the attack on our civil liberties and on immigrants. All of those things we've gotten by the droves because we allowed ourselves to be silenced. The bottom line is that this politics of fear tells you got to vote against what you're afraid of instead of for what you believe. That politics of fear delivered everything we were afraid of. So we say, reject the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they do.